Hello, everybody. Welcome to a evening edition of this Hawk Blogger Nights, I guess. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all the places at Hawk Blogger. As you well know, if you haven't already, click like, subscribe, and the bell to get notified. This is a good reason to do so because you just never know when I'm going to be going live. And Finn has been bottled up all day, so I'm letting him walk around back here. Any minute, he's going to start barking at somebody walking by. So apologies for that, but I'm just going to let it happen. So if you're here, you are a certified Seahawks sicko. I mean, here it is, 10 after 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, and you're tuning into a live show that I just scheduled 5 minutes ago. Kudos to you. I am doing this show for you because I was you. I've been you, where it's like, okay, the radio's not talking about this that just happened. Most of the press probably isn't really talking about what just happened. And I'm curious, this was the first time that this team together has been in Lumen Field. What happened? What did we learn? And I will go through that with you as much as I can. And this will probably not be the longest episode ever, but it will be as informative as I can make it. So let's get some news out of the way first. Some unfortunate news to start. It looks like AJ Finley, the Seahawks safety, number 30, went down in practice. He was ultimately carted off the field. Mike McDonald mentioned in his post practice press conference that initial news was not good. He did indicate it does seem to be a knee injury of some sort, and that they, kneeled at the end of practice. He gave a prayer for AJ Finley. He had a lot of really nice things to say about AJ Finley, and we can hold out some hope that maybe there's some better news will come, but initial news not good there. AJ Finley, has been running with essentially the third string, maybe the fourth string safety spot, but this is about more than, whether he was going to be an impactful Seahawk. It's about a guy that's, trying to make his dream come true as an NFL player, continuing a career that he had with the Chargers and with Seahawks. And this is a pretty big setback. So that's the unfortunate news at the jump. Outside of that, I think that there were some interesting moments from my perspective in terms of rotation. But the news part of this is that Mike McDonald mentioned that Christian Haynes has been dealing with some sort of pec injury. It doesn't sound like it's super serious, but that is part of why we have not seen much of Christian Haynes the last few days. My guess was that meant he had kind of lost the battle, and maybe at right guard and maybe at center, and that they were just, giving him more reps with third string players. But it sounds like maybe there's a little bit of an injury issue. So open question there continues. He also mentioned, Kenneth Walker did not practice tonight or at the scrimmage. And he said that he's got a bit of a foot that they're resting, but essentially Mike McDonald said, we're just taking care of him at this point of the preseason. Like, we just don't need to have him out there. So take of that what you will, because Clint Kubiak did an interview with Stacy and Bump. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was the day before. I think it was yesterday. And one of the things they asked about is what you look for in a running back. And he did mention something along the lines of availability. And I mean, Zach Charbonnet is out there every single day, taking every rep that they give him. Mike McDonald had some amazing things to say about him today. Sam Darnold had some nice things to say about him today. Is there a chance that Zach Charbonnet is going to be the starting running back? There's more of a chance than there was a week ago. I'll say that. I think that we are pretty solidly into a, split share, I would say, of the running back carries if the season started right now. But who knows? A lot of teams take care of their running back in the preseason. but it is a question mark when you're not at these practices and you've got a guy in Zach Charbonnet that's there every single day. So that's just something to keep an eye on. I know people will jump to all sorts of conclusions about Ken Walker. For me, I don't. He's still incredibly talented. I still think that he's going to have a great season, but we'll just kind of continue to walk this walk and see what happens along the way. Now, let's get to the actual scrimmage, the fan fest itself. This is not quite what it's been in the past where, Pete Carroll would hold a almost official scrimmage, right? Where one team would get the ball, they'd go against, like the first team would go against the second string defense, and the second string offense would go against the first string defense, and they'd keep score, and they'd keep, first down, second down, they'd move the chains, all that kind of stuff. That's not what this is. So it's not something where you're like going to keep stats. I mean, you can any other training camp practice, but I think that's pretty foolish. There was more situational stuff where they would get out there and do some things. And I continue to think Anthony Bradford is the odds-on favorite to be the right guard. I'll talk to you about how 1v1s went today. I just think he's playing the best of any of them. And I don't think they all are terrible, and so Anthony Bradford gets it. I think he's playing pretty well, and I thought his pass protection today was pretty good considering that's a known weakness. So I'm in this odd place where I'm like, yeah, I think Anthony Bradford's your best option at right guard, and I'm saying that with a straight face. I believe that to be true. I think he might ultimately be a decent player there. We'll find out. I'm looking forward to preseason games and seeing him out there. But he and Abe Lucas next to each other, I think, is a really interesting pair. Olu still seems to be the odds-on favorite at center, just based on what I'm seeing. But here's the thing. Jalen Sundell is a massive wild card in this. Jalen Sundell gets snaps at right guard. Jalen Sundell gets snaps at center. Jalen Sundell is a guy that has tons of respect in that locker room among the coaching staff and brings a lot to the table. He also is obviously former roommates with Gray Zabel in college. There's chemistry and familiarity there. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think the games will help decide if there's something that changes there. Anthony Bradford is just the most physically gifted player that they could put in that spot. And if he doesn't get the penalties, and if he is able to improve his pass protection so it's not just an absolute disaster, I just think he gives you something that no one else gives you. So that's my current read, and continues to be my current read on that right guard spot. When they came out with the first string, it was Josh Jones playing left tackle with Charles Cross still out after his surgery on his hand. Gray Zabel, Olu, Anthony Bradford, and Abe Lucas. So those are the guys that started. Looking through, I'm not going to go through every play that went here. I think there was a nice throw from Sam Darnold on the opening possession to Elijah Arroyo. It was a back shoulder throw. It was interesting. Elijah Arroyo out pretty wide in this formation. He was going up against, I think it was Reek Woolen, and Sam Darnold threw him a back shoulder. It was perfectly placed. Arroyo just juggled it and ended up dropping it. So good throw from Darnold there. On 3rd and 12, they threw an out to Torrey Horton versus Josh Jobe. Didn't quite get, it was not quite a good well-timed throw. 3rd and 12, it was tough to complete. Torrey Horton, though, again, showed up in this practice. He had in some of the 1v1 drills in passing, and also they do some of these longer distance 1v1s, and then they have 40 or so yards and to play with, and then they had some red zone 1v1s. Torrey Horton made some, he mossed a couple of guys in both of those drills. I'll go over the specific plays in a little bit, but Torrey Horton, again, continues to be a guy that's making a play. And Mike McDonald at the end of practice, when we were asking him in the press conference about Torrey Horton, he's just he quoted Steve Smith saying, a rookie has to make a play a day if they want to stand out. And Mike McDonald said Torrey Horton's making multiple plays a day. So I think Torrey Horton is certainly, surging in the receiver room. And for a room that needs playmakers, he looks like a guy that can provide some of that, which is what I think all of us hoped for. And it's really good to see him kind of increasing in confidence and, stringing some really good days back to back to back. So let me see. I'm looking through a couple. I've got every play listed here, so forgive me. I have not, as usual with my practice reports, I'm going to look at some of my notes and then also selectively pick what to share. The running game was struggled at least early to find any rhythm. Jalen Milroe had a nice practice, I thought, and there was a play where, he took off on a scramble that would have been at least a 10 to 15 yard gain. There was a bootleg where, again, he ran away. I think he ended practice with what was called a touchdown to Tyrone Broden. I think everybody who saw the replay saw Tyrone Broden came down out of bounds, but in any event, it was a good throw by Jalen Milroe. And this is kind of skipping ahead, but he had on this kind of final drive. I think the situation was they were behind and they were driving to try to win the game. They don't really announce the situation. You have to kind of assess it yourself. But Jalen Milroe made maybe the best throw of the day down the right sideline to Tyrone Broden for what was probably like a 35-yard catch. It was a beautiful throw, beautiful catch by Tyrone Broden, who continues to defy his college taboo, like his college issue, which was drops. I still have yet to see Tyrone Broden drop a pass. And so when you got a 6'5" guy with speed and can high point the ball, he becomes an interesting player for this team. I'm not sure that they're going to walk away from him. I don't know that he will be on the 53. I think that's a stretch, but he's a guy that is toolsy enough that I think really is making a push for the practice squad. So let's get to 1v1s. This is they were doing, they kind of like made it really hard on us who are tracking it. They had the 1v1 pass rush drills going on in one part of the field. They had 1v1 blitz pickup running backs versus linebackers in another part of the field. Then they had red zone 1v1s with receivers going against defensive backs in a third part of the field. So mostly I was watching the 1v1 pass rush drills, but I did catch some of the red zone stuff. I'll share that in a second. First 1v1 I saw was Leonard Williams going up against Gray Zabel, and I think he beat him in the first rep and then did a spin move in the second rep, and Gray Zabel did another spin himself to kind of get back in position. I don't think you usually see offensive linemen doing spin moves, but Leonard Williams gave him a lot to handle. So Gray Zabel was not perfect there and has not been perfect. I think generally he's been very good. Certainly better than what you'd expect from like Laken Tomlinson last year, but Leonard Williams has given him a lot, and Leonard Williams is really, really good. Byron Murphy had a nice rush to get around Oluwatimi, and then he bull rushed Olu right into the lap of the quarterback on the next one. So that was probably among the better 1v1s I've seen from Byron Murphy so far in camp, at least that showing. And then this is an example of what I've been seeing from Anthony Bradford. Jaron Reed, who gives a lot of guys trouble, including like Gray Zabel at times. He tried to get around Anthony Bradford, totally stoned him. Then they go for a second one, and he couldn't bull rush him, and he couldn't get around him. And just so you know, it's not just me. After that second rep, Jaron Reed dapped up Anthony Bradford, like, nice job. And Jaron Reed's the guy that kind of gave Gray Zabel a little something the first time, like a vet move. And, Anthony Bradford was more than up to the task in those. Then Leonard Williams lined up on left end to go against Abe Lucas. And that was the first time I've seen that matchup. And it was a fantastic rep by Abe. I mean, Leonard Williams is a handful, and he didn't get anywhere against Abe. Then Derek Hall went against him in the second rep. So it's kind of interesting for Abe Lucas to face a big, powerful, and quick defensive player in Leonard Williams, and then have the next rep be against Derek Hall, very different rusher. Abe won both reps. So he continues to me to be really rock solid at the right side. I think some of the most impressive reps I saw were from Mike Jarrell. Mike Jarrell went against 57, and I don't have my roster in front of me. Let me look that up real quick. Sorry. Seahawks roster. I think it might be Connor O'Toole. He might be back. I don't know. Yes, it was. How about that? I got it. So Connor O'Toole, who's been out with an injury, was there. He had no chance against Mike Jarrell. Mike Jarrell, I still think he is a more interesting tackle than Josh Jones, but that's just what I'm seeing so far. Then a little good back and forth between Mike Morris and Mason Richmond. Mason Richmond was playing left guard. The next time, Mike Morris just literally like trucked him, ran over Mason Richmond. So good rep there. There was a funny moment in practice. There was a 1v1 later in front of the team, and it was Mike Morris going up against someone. I can't remember who. I think I might have in my notes. Apparently, Marquez Valdez-Scantling bet Mike McDonald that whoever on the offense would beat Mike Morris in the 1v1. Turned out he was right. So Mike McDonald had to do 5 push-ups. So that was a kind of funny little moment. Anyway, so that was good reps for Mike Morris, at least in this 1v1. And then Jalen Sundell went up against Quentin Bohanna, did great there. Then he went up against 69, who I think is J.R. Singleton, if I'm correct. No, it's Bubba Thomas. So he did well there. Both of those reps came with Sundell playing center. Satawa Lameu, who's like the forgotten man. I don't exactly understand why he's not been given really an opportunity to compete for a starting spot, given that he started the end of last year. He had a good rep against 95 is Brandon Peely. Yes, of course. Brandon Peely. And did that twice. And then Jalen Gaines had a nice rush again. Jalen Gaines continues to have a nice camp. I think he got around Luke Felix Fualalo. And let's see. So that was it for the 1v1 pass rush. There was a great interception in the 1v1 red zone by Cam Alexander, the cornerback. Devin Witherspoon was super excited. Like it was a great kind of jump ball. He came down with it. And then the next time they came around, Torrey Horton was going up against Cam Alexander, another jump ball. And this time Torrey Horton comes down with it, and he made sure Cam Alexander knew about it. He kind of stomped off like after making the catch. So Torrey Horton's got a little swag that's growing, which is cool to see, and a great play from him in that kind of red zone situation, which we're going to have to see a lot of. I also saw like AJ Barner make a play in the red zone as per usual. AJ Barner, I think, had a good scrimmage overall, had made a really nice catch over the middle from Sam Darnold on one play, made another contested catch. I mean, he just, every time he's given a chance, he seems to come down with the football. So I think, AJ Barner continues to climb the charts in terms of how central he's going to be to this offense. All right, so they got back to team drills. Zach Charbonnet got a nice gain to the right side, but behind Anthony Bradford and Abe Lucas. One of the best passes of the day from Sam Darnold. A beautiful pass on a play action to Jackson Smith and Jigba for 35 yards along the left hash. Really nicely designed and nicely executed. By the way, Jalen Sundell was in at center for this series. And then later in this series, there was a run to the right by George Halani, and Tyrese Knight just absolutely lit him up. Really, really nice tackle as think people forget how good of a tackler Tyrese Knight is, especially in the run game. And that was a good reminder if you did forget. Let's see. There's a nice play by Damian Martinez on the next series where he, I think, deftly kind of cut along the line and broke outside for a reasonably large gain. Then the next group was with Jalen Milroe. It was nice to. I still like to see him going through his progressions, and he kind of goes through his progressions, and then he hit Robbie Oots for a quick completion. Damari Williams absolutely lit up Robbie Oots, gave him a big hit. There was then a boot and like a bootleg, and Jalen Milroe, as I said, took off for a big gain. There's been a couple read options going on with Jalen Milroe. I only see those when he's in the game. So they're at least working on some things that accentuate his talents. I also saw a QB draw with Jalen Milroe, which is also good to see, and just seeing some different ways that they're using him. Okay, so then the thing that they do sometimes, I told you about, where they do 1v1s for different positions in front of the whole team. And the first one, Torrey Horton makes this one of these mossed catches. Like, he just totally mossed a guy for a touchdown on a throw from Drew Lock. Then Nick Emanwari was facing Elijah Arroyo. Emanwari locked him up. There was nothing available for Arroyo on that play. Then it was Olu going against Mike Morris. This is the one that that Mike McDonald lost the bet. Olu absolutely won that rep. Then Mason Richmond won the rep against Connor O'Toole. And then 43, is that Derek? Oh, Seth Coleman. Yes. Seth Coleman gets absolutely stoned by Abe Lucas. No chance there. Then there was Ty Okada had some really nice coverage on Brady Russell. And then Jalen Milroe throws to John Rice Plumlee. This was a gorgeous play, probably a 40-yard touchdown to John Rice Plumlee going against Isas Waxter. So Plumlee ran away from Waxter on that. First time I've really been able to see him doing the long, like the vertical play, and really see Waxter at full tilt to see what kind of speed he has. And in this particular situation, he did not have closing speed. So that's something I was kind of just curious about. Doesn't mean he doesn't have it, but he didn't have it on this play. Some more team drills. Oh, one of the biggest run plays I saw on the day was an inside handoff to Zach Charbonnet with Olu Oluwatimi pulling from center and kind of kicking out on the left side. Created a huge hole, and Charbonnet just burst through it a ton there. I think Jalen Sundell was playing right guard, so it was Olu at center, Sundell at right guard at that point. Then there was this was with Sam Darnold, by the way, in there. Then he hits JSN on a sprint out for a nice gain, nice throw, quick end around to Zach Charbonnet, and then a deep out to Torrey Horton against. Oh wait, that doesn't make sense. I think it might have been against Waxter. I'm not sure. I think I have the wrong number really written down. But on that play, it was a longer developing play, and the pass protection was really good. And I think Sundell and Abe Lucas in particular looked like they had a nice rep on the right side, holding up against some pressure. So that was one of the better series. But that's the thing, is like why this isn't a scrimmage. They would kind of do a few things and then they'd come off the field. So past years, you're like, who led a touchdown drive? Well, they weren't really allowing them to lead touchdown drives for the most part. So take that. It's just kind of like any other practice in that regard. Let's see. Damian Martinez had a nice inside draw for a pretty big gain. Drew Lock threw to Elijah Arroyo, And once again, Tai Okada knocked it out of his hands. That's happened multiple times during training camp so far. So something for Elijah Arroyo to work on a little bit is, when he makes the catch to secure the ball and to come down with it. And also kudos to Tai Okada for continually being a guy that can play all the way through the end of the play and force him incompletions. Then Jalen Milroe's in, huge gain for him. There's a big gain on a QB draw, and then a bigger gain to Jacardia Wright on the left side of the line. I don't have in my notes who was on the line, who was in the line for that. Most likely with Jalen Milroe in there, that's like Luke Felix Fualalo and some of the other guys that are third string guys. Then he throws a touchdown pass to Derek Young, who went up for it and made a contested catch. This is where AJ Finley hurt his leg. Like, there was 3 of them all together. They all came down. They all looked like they were a little bit shaken up by the play, but AJ Finley was the one that needed to be helped off the field, ultimately carted off the field. Let's see. Sam Darnold comes back in, and the throw that was hard to tell if it was a miscommunication with Cooper Kupp. It looked like Sam Darnold thought Cooper Kupp was going to sit down in a spot, but he kept moving. Darnold threw it. It should have been intercepted by Devin Witherspoon. It's possible it was just a poor pass, but it looked a little bit fishy in terms of maybe there's a communication breakdown. Trying to see if there's anything else in that series. Nothing really. Talked about the AJ Barner, another nice pass to JSN. Oh, so Brady Russell was taking the snaps as the long snapper with Chris Stoll unavailable right now. He's got a bit of a back issue, according to Mike McDonald. Unclear if he's going to be available for the first preseason game against the Raiders. And if he's not, I would guess that they would sign somebody to do that, but don't know. Someone just sent me the Seahawks latest post, which is just one word: aura. Do you think that the folks over in the Seahawks org listen to Real Hawk Talk? I think they do. That's really funny. All right, so the last series was Jalen Milroe. As I said, huge throw, maybe the biggest throw of the day down the right sideline to Tyrone Broden. It was a gorgeous throw. Nice catch by Broden. Cam Alexander was in coverage on that. Then they toss it left to Jacardia Wright. Another big gain there. Then there was what would have been a sack by Seth Coleman and Jalen Gaines. And then Jalen Milroe throws an off-target pass behind the receiver. A little read option. Nothing gained there. And then the final play was the, quote, touchdown to Broden that ended practice. And like I said, he landed out of bounds. So it really wasn't a touchdown, but it was a good throw and a good catch, even though his feet didn't end up being down there. All right. So I see there's a bunch of super chats. Let me get to these. Old School Seahawk, who's been a member for over a year, says, what a treat. The 12s do appreciate you, sir. Well, thank you, dude. I appreciate you too. The Cats in the Hats says, do you think there's a chance John Schneider's waiting on extensions because he thinks there's a chance he might have a big edge rusher to pay? I do not. I think that they're going to do their extensions when they're ready to do them. And I still think Kobe Bryant's probably going to be the first to do one, but it depends on his representation and whether they think that they're better off waiting. So I still think extensions are going to come, but we will see. Will Fries says, Michael Sean Dugar mentioned Olu as a possibility at right guard during the Collective podcast. Excuse me. Is there any chance that could happen? I was surprised when Mike brought that up because I haven't seen Olu take a snap at any position but center all camp. So he has in the past done some guard stuff in last season, but I just, if you're going to play Olu and Jalen Sundell, I don't know why you wouldn't play Olu at center and Sundell at guard. So I think I see it differently than Mike, but Mike's been doing this longer than I have, at least on the beat. So, I wouldn't totally throw it out. Full Throttle Gadget says, "Hey Brian, thanks for the late pod. Damian Martinez didn't look too bad in my eye tonight. What did you think?" Yeah, I thought Damian Martinez had an okay scrimmage. I thought he had some nice plays. I think he also had some not a lot of running room on certain ones, and he also slipped on a play. So I didn't think it was a stellar night for him, but I didn't think it was bad either. Then Brian Henderson, our last super chat here, says, "Stock up or down on the rookies so far through camp?" So, I mean, I'll go through them one by one. For Gray Zabel, stocks, I guess, up. To me, it's like it's as expected. I think he's going to be a really good guard, and he's not going to be perfect. He's not going to be Steve Hutchinson right away, but I think he's got everything you need to be a really good player in this league. I think they got a really good one in Gray Zabel. Nicky Minwori, the arrow's certainly up. I think there's more question marks about how he was going to be used and how he would adapt to it and how he would take to the coaching. All signs are really positive about Nicky Minwori. Elijah Arroyo, I think the arrow is still up. You know, he's making plays. He's a talented player. I think he's working at his blocking. His ball security stuff is something to keep an eye on. But so far, so good there. I think when you get into Jalen Milroe, the arrow is certainly up. It's so much more up than it was when he was drafted. If we look at the fourth round guys, that's when it gets really interesting. If you look at the fourth and fifth round guys, I think Riley Mills, there was no fourth round. So fifth round, there's a bunch of fifth round guys. Riley Mills hasn't practiced yet, so we don't really know. But I think the arrow still is kind of up because just watching him as an injured player going through practice reps, I mean, this guy is obsessed with football. So that's been cool to see. Torrey Horton, arrow's certainly up. Robbie Oots, up. Bryce Cabledew, I'd say the arrow's down. I had really high expectations for Bryce Cabledew. I think he has struggled a bit at guard and when they've tried him at tackle. So that's not gone nearly as well as I had hoped. Damian Martinez, I'd say the arrow is exactly where it was when he came in. No change. Mason Richmond, I would say arrow down a little bit, but, you know, not significantly. And then Ricky White, he has not been practicing the past few days, including today. He has been having a nice camp. I would say arrow up in general for him, but I think he's got a long, it's going to take a long shot for him to make the 53. All right, last super chat here from Diesel Oriented says, "Brian, what are the chances we see Milroe 5 to 10 snaps a game?" If we don't see Jalen Milroe for 5 snaps at least a game, I think that something's wrong. I think he's too talented to not be on the field. I think this offense needs what he brings. And so, yeah, I fully expect that he's going to get at least 5 snaps a game. And if he doesn't, I'm going to have a lot of questions about it. All right, folks, I got to run. I got to get my kid to bed. I got to get ready for an early morning myself. But I wanted to make sure at least I got this for all of you so you'd have some idea what happened during this scrimmage. And tomorrow, the Seahawks are off. Jeff Simmons and I will do a Seahawks Sunday around 2 p.m. Pacific time, roughly. We're going to try to figure that out. And then next week, we get into prep for the first preseason game on Thursday. So lots of good stuff coming. Make sure you give the show a like and subscribe. Make sure you go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up there to get ad-free audio of this show, as well as access to the Discord channel where I hang out all the time with everybody else, talking about all sorts of sports, and it's a fun place to be. And you get verified over at HB Ticks. Guys, there's Raiders preseason tickets available on hbtix.com. You can see Pete Carroll come there, give him a standing ovation, cheer. You like, this is a game that if it's ever a preseason game to go to, this would be the one. Go to hbtix.com. There are a bunch of tickets for this Raiders preseason game. Make sure you check it out. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow. Until then, have a great night. I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Evenings, I guess. Take care.